You have reached Red Steele's Uncircled Review. I'm your man, Red Steele, and today I'll be reviewing Transformers Retro Series Weirdwolf. Transformers Retro Series Headmaster Weirdwolf. But before I get to the actual review, I just want to talk about some of the awesome details on this packaging. Up front here, we'll show you both the figure and all the accessories inside. On the top flap here, you have the Transformers More Than Meets the Eye logo. Then over here it says Evil Decepticons. And on top of the packaging here, you have all of the steps for Weirdwolf's transformation. Then on front of the packaging here in the corner, it says Headmaster Weirdwolf. Below that, you have a picture of the actual figure transformed into Weirdwolf's head. And down here it says Monzo Headmaster. The other side of the packaging here is a beautiful illustration of Weirdwolf in his robot mode. Then down here you have Transformers. In the corner here you have the 8+, which is age requirement for this figure. And next to that you have the old school Hasbro emblem. The other side of the packaging here on the very top, you have the Transformers More Than Meets the Eye logo. Below that you have a picture of the actual figure in his robot mode. You have Monzo in his robot mode. Then you have Weirdwolf in his wolf mode. And below that it says Headmaster Weirdwolf. You have the exact same thing on the other side and on the bottom. Then on the back of the packaging here, in the corner you have Transformers More Than Meets the Eye. And again, the Decepticon logo with Evil Decepticon. Over here is beautiful old school montage of all the figures in Series 4 with all the Headmasters. Then down here it says, it is a world of constant change, where things are not what they seem. It is the world of the Transformers, a world of heroic Autobots and evil Decepticon. Then down here you have Weirdwolf's tech specs, starting with Decepticon Weirdwolf. Over here is his profile picture. And down here you have Function Tracker. Quote, my pleasure with my enemy's pain come. Over here it says, cruel, vicious, but apparently built with a few wires crossed. Talks to himself in a sing-song backward way. Destroy the Autobots, I shall. And next to that you have his bio-spec readout. Corner here you have the Transformers Authentic logo. And next to that you have the old school Hasbro emblem. Transformers Generations Retro Series Headmaster Weirdwolf. Weirdwolf was released on June 4, 2021 with the suggested retail price of $19.87, and it was available exclusively at Walmart. Weirdwolf is a Generation 1 inspired figure that converts to his wolf mode in 17 steps. His accessories include his Headmaster Trainer Monzo, blaster, sword, and instructions. Weirdwolf stands 5.5 inches tall, and he is meant for fans ages 8 and up. Now I'm going to go ahead and convert Weirdwolf from his wolf mode all the way to his robot mode. The first step of the transformation will turn Weirdwolf all the way around. You got his tail right here. We'll take his tail, we're going to take it out just like that. You want to put his tail off to the side. So for step number 2, on Weirdwolf's back, you have this big panel right here. You have the hinge joint right there. Going through this panel, you want to flip it up just like that. So step number 3, you have a double jointed hinge on the bottom here. You have this back end and front end. We're going to go ahead and separate them and untab them just like that. This is step number 4. Go to this back end and we're going to go ahead and collapse it into the body using that double jointed hinge. So you take it, you bring it up and in just like that. So step number 5. Go to this panel right here. You want to close it back up again, which leaves you with 2 little portholes right there and right there. You got Weirdwolf's head, you got his ears, which is actually 2 pegs right there and right there. You got a hinge joint right there. So you want to flip that head back, and you want to put the ears right in those portholes, just like that. Then step number 6, you want to take Weirdwolf's feet now. Bottom of his feet here, you got a couple of heels right there and right there. You want to flip his heels out, just like that. And you want to go and do that to the other side. Flip that heel out, just like that. Step number 7. You want to turn Weirdwolf all the way around? You got his arms right there and right there. You want to take his arms, you want to bring him down just like that. Do that to the side with his arm, bring it down just like that. So for step number 8, you have Weirdwolf's feet right there and right there. You want to take his foot, you want to rotate it all the way around so his yellow piece is facing forward just like that. Do that to the other side, take his foot now, rotate it all the way around just like that. So for step number 9, you have this piece right there and right there. You have double joint hinge right there and right there. You want to bring this piece now and bring it right over the shin. You want to snap it right into place just like that. Do that to the other side, take this piece, bring it down and over the shin just like that. So for step number 10, you have Weirdwolf's paws right there and right there. We're going to bring his paw up just like that. Do that to the other side, take his paw, bring it up just like that. So step number 11, right at the bicep here, you have a swivel joint right there and right there. You're going to rotate this arm all the way around, just like that. Do that to the other side of his arm and rotate it around, just like that. So step number 12, you have his firm cover right there and right there, and hinge joint right there and right there. I'll flip this cover up just like that. Do that to the other side of that cover and flip it up just like that. So step number 13, get a hinge joint right there and right there. And you have a fist inside the forearm right there and right there. Once you get that fist, you want to flip it down just like that. Do that to the other side, that fist. You want to go ahead and flip it down just like that. So step number 14, once you get that cover now, you want to go and close the forearm up just like that. Do that to the other side, that forearm cover, close it up just like that. Brings forward to step number 15, you want to go and grab Monzo, the Headmaster trainer. You want to convert Monzo into Weirdwolf's head. You do that by taking his legs and you fold him just like that in seated position. You push it in just like that. You flip him over, and now you have Weirdwolf's head. At the bottom of Weirdwolf's head, you have a little peg right there. So step number 16, you want to grab Weirdwolf now. In between his shoulders, you have a little porthole right there. You want to grab Monzo and push it right into that porthole just like that. For the 17th and final step, I want to go and grab Weirdwolf's cannon right here. On the bottom of his cannon here, you have a little handle right there, which is actually a 5mm peg. On his shoulder here, you have a 5mm porthole. I want to go and grab that cannon and plug it right in his shoulder, just like that. Now you want to go and grab his tail, whoops, which is actually his sword. And the handle of that sword is actually a 5mm peg. And his other hand is also a 5mm porthole. I want to go ahead and put that sword right into his hand just like that. And now you have Weirdwolf in his full robot mode. Now that Weirdwolf in his wolf mode and on my display table, so I'm going to go over some of his play features and accessories. First by talking about his blaster. And according to the instructions, we're going to arm Weirdwolf with this blaster while he's in his wolf mode. Next on top of this blaster, you have a slot right there and right there. On top of Weirdwolf, you have a porthole right there and right there. You take those slots, you plug them in those portholes, just like that. And now you have Weirdwolf armed in his wolf mode. Pretty cool play feature, and Weirdwolf looks super menacing with that blaster on his back. And a cool little detail right here, I love how they did these little ridges in the barrel. Very, very cool. But as you may or may not know, I'm not a big fan of arming my Transformers in their alt mode unless it plays in a part of the transformation, which it does not in this case. So I'm going to take this blaster, I'll put this off to the side. Because the next accessory I want to bring in is this Headmaster Trainer, Monzo. We have Monzo Pilot Weirdwolf. We're going to take Weirdwolf now. Get this panel on his back, you have a hinge joint right there, you have a tab right there. I want to go and pry him up by that tab. It reveals a little cockpit right here with a little seat and controls. We want to go take Monzo now, put him in seated position, slide him right in that seat, just like that. We're going to close this up, and now you have Monzo piloting Weirdwolf. And I always felt that the Headmasters were a very underrated series, and unfortunately they debuted during the decline of Transformers' popularity here in the United States. And Transformers were going very strong, very popular toy company or toy series, you know, the first two series. Unfortunately, after Series 2, they had a mishap where they released Transformers the movie because Series 1 and Series 2 influenced Transformers Season 1 and Season 2 of the cartoon series. They followed up with Transformers the movie, and they wanted to roll out a new series of figures, but they didn't have enough room in that to include the older figures. So what they did, instead of just discontinuing and making them kind of like background characters. They went ahead and killed off a lot of the characters in the movie, and this kind of turned away a lot of kids that were very attached to these characters that they got grown to love in the first 2 years of Transformers. So when Series 3 came out and Season 3 came out, Transformers started dipping popularity a little bit. So by the time Series 4 came out, which debuted the Headmasters, Hasbro decided to go ahead and discontinue the cartoon series and wrap up the whole story of the Transformers here in the United States with a 3-part miniseries called Rebirth, which tells the stories of how the Autobots and Decepticons went to a planet called Nublios, and the Autobots, in order to gain the trust of the Nublians, who are native to Nublios, they sacrificed their heads and their weapons, which Nublians turned into exosuits, or literal transforming cybernetic costumes, whatever you want to call it, where they kind of transformed into their heads and their weapons and kind of became co-pilots of these Transformers. Well, the Decepticons did the same thing with Nublian's enemy, the Hive, where they teamed up with the Hive to battle the Nublians and the Autobots, and they became kind of a war where they decided to keep the story going on that way, which I thought was kind of a misstep. It they could have kept the battle on Earth, because after all, you got little humanoid-shaped pilots, but that's just my own honest opinion. Well, Transformers was still very extremely popular in Japan, and they wanted to go ahead and continue the story of the Transformers in Japan, but they went ahead and they bypassed the whole Rebirth series, and they went on with their own continuity called the Headmasters, which kind of brought the battle back to Earth, where instead of being Transformers that gave up their heads or their weapons to an alien race, the Headmasters were more or less little Transformers that just escaped the Great War of Cybertron because they wanted nothing to do with the Autobot versus the Decepticon conflict. So they went to they left the planet and they crash landed on a planet called Masters, where the environment was very harsh and it was very difficult for the Transformers to survive on. So they built themselves bodies and vehicles, which they call transectors, which would transform into bodies where they could transform it into the heads, where they could endure the rugged environment of Masters. And unfortunately, they broke off in two factions, and their battle came back to Cybertron, where they joined the Autobots and Decepticons once again. Well, that's where this figure kind of falls into place, but I'll get more into detail into why I brought that up, because when Titans Returns came out, they did develop the Headmaster figures, but they based those designs more on the Rebirth series. And Takara at the same time brought out Transformers Legends, where they brought out their version of Headmasters, where they based those molds more on the animated model from Headmasters anime series. But like I said, that's not really prevalent in the Wolf mode. But there are some things I want to bring about the Wolf mode, because I have heard reports online that there was an issue, at least with the Titans Return version of Weirdwolf. I have not seen it with this version, and this version I've been sitting on for a couple years. He's been sealed. Finally opened him up, and I did fear that this might have happened to this version of Weirdwolf, which it didn't. But there's this little silver piece, and they say it's molded out of like a rubbery plastic, where it deteriorates over time, becomes very gummy. What happens is if you have the mouth sealed, the top and the bottom part sealed together, and you might not be able to open the mouth. And I was very pleasantly surprised when I was able to, open up the jar and find that I did not have that happen to my version of Weirdwolf. So it might only be prevalent for the Titans Return version of Weirdwolf. Another thing, another design element that they changed in this version of Weirdwolf was, I guess this hinge joint right here. It was with Titans Return, a lot of these cockpit panels were just snapping off. But I'm not sure how that would have happened, because I did not really transform my Weirdwolf too much. I think I took him right out of the package and displayed him. Then after I was done, I put him back into his package, and now he's sitting in storage. And I kind of wish I brought him back out to a side-by-side comparison. But instead, I did bring out my Generation 1 figure instead, because I just felt that a lot of fans, when they watch my reviews, they enjoy the fact that I do have a lot of the Generation 1 versions of those figures and this is the original source material. And you can see a lot of design elements did carry over to Titans Return / the Retro Series Weirdwolf, but I do love that they want to step further by adding more points of articulation. They did do, made them more proportionate to what you would see an actual wolf have, as opposed to the blockiness of Generation 1, which, you gotta appreciate Generation 1 for what it is, because it is the original. Plus, this figure is over 30 years old. I've had friends that, I have toys that are older than most of my friends, to be honest with you. But one cool design element was they kept the cockpit here. Unfortunately, they didn't do any mold detail like they did with Titans Return / Retro Series, But the Headmaster is solid. I mean, Generation 1 Headmaster, that's the only thing I'll give this version of Weirdwolf over the newer version. The Headmaster is solid. It's a nicely done figure, lots of detail. And I'm going to go ahead and pull out this version of Weirdwolf's Monzo's trainer from the Retro series because I just want to do a side-by-side comparison. As you can see, there's a big scaling difference. So I mean, with the scaling differences, you do lack a little bit of detail also. But the one thing I do like about the Generation 1 version of their Headmasters is when you turn them around, there's no sign of the head on the backpack right here. What they do is they give you a little detail where you can just flip this panel up and hide the face. Well, they didn't really do that with the Retro series / Titans Return version of the Headmasters, where you can just see the head right there. But there aren't going to be too many times where you're going to display your Headmaster with the back facing out, number one. Number two, you'll most likely either display him in a wolf mode where he's in the cockpit or in the robot mode. So I don't really feel like I'm being too nitpicky about that detail. But I do love the fact that, you could have the trainer or the pilot inside of your Headmaster. Very, very cool, and I'm glad that design element carried over to the more modern versions of these figures. Very, very nicely done. I want to go ahead and rotate these figures around so you can see the differences and the similarities. And like I said, a lot of design elements did carry over from Generation 1, like the tail sword here. There's also the tail sword there. I mean, the color scheme kind of matches. And with the Headmaster, though, what Headmaster did on the cartoon series in Japan was they kind of stayed more faithful to the toy design as opposed to rebirth versions of the Transformers, where they kind of it looks like they kind of rushed the designs because they don't look a lot like the cartoon designs, but they're good nonetheless. But I do really enjoy this version of Weirdwolf. I do feel like he's far superior to Generation 1. It's a nicely done figure, lots of great mold detail here, a lot of points of articulation. This is a great figure. I mean, I love the fact that the jaw opens and closes. You got a cockpit with design. I mean, if you look at the cockpit here, you see like control panels. You see like some like mold detail on the inside that kind of give that robotic look. The only one fault I see inside the cockpit is you got his visor right here, and it scrapes against the seat and leaves that little red mark. But like I said, it's very forgivable because you're not going to display him with that being visible. But nonetheless, Weirdwolf is a top-notch figure, and if you get your hands on one, whether it be Titans Return retro figure, and you know what, I didn't even mention this, and I might mention this later on, they also released the Walgreens exclusive, which was very special because it's the first time that they brought out the Legends molds to the United States. Now they have Weirdwolf in his robot mode and on my display table, so we'll go over some of his plate features and accessories. First by talking about his cannon here. And I know this was all shown during the transformation part of this review, so they had him arm his cannon in the shoulder, sword in hand. But this is not how the original Generation 1 Weirdwolf armed himself, so I'm going to take this cannon now, put it into his fist, because his fist is actually a 5mm porthole. On the bottom here, you have a 5mm peg. Go and plug that right into his fist just like that. And now you have Weirdwolf armed with this blaster and sword. Pretty cool play feature. And I know that this figure has a lot of history, and I tried to explain a little bit of it during the Wolf segment of this review, and I'll get more into detail right now because it makes more sense now that I have him in his robot mode. But originally this figure is actually a retooling of the Titans Returns version of Weirdwolf. And that is because the Titans Returns version of Weirdwolf was based more on the animated model from the Transformers Rebirth series, which I mentioned earlier on, was where in the United States, Hasbro decided to discontinue Transformers cartoon after season 3, and they wanted to wrap up this series with a 3-part miniseries called Rebirth. And those animated designs, or those animated designs for the cartoon series, were very rushed and very basic, and they used Akon Studios to animate that 3-part miniseries, and you can tell the animated differences between that and Toei, where Toei was a regular studio that animated Transformers in the first 2 seasons and half of season 3, and that was more cost-cutting measures because, like I mentioned, the decline in popularity. So Akon did produce the series Rebirth, and those designs were very basic, and Titans Return based their toy design on those animated concept designs. Well, in Japan at the same time, Takara decided to release their versions of the Headmasters based on their cartoon series that the fans grown to love, Headmasters, because that was an extremely popular series in Japan. So Japan and the United States released two different types of Headmasters for their consecutive series. Well, a lot of fans were clamoring for those designs because we had a lot of fans here in the United States that were kind of picking up on the Japanese series, Headmasters, Master Force, Victory. So a lot of fans were clamoring for those designs because the main difference was the head design right here. And the head design was way different in the United States than it was in Japan. And even the color schemes were a little different. And what happened was, I think Hasbro saw the calling and they released those Legends versions of the Headmasters as Walgreens exclusives for a little while. And those were exactly what Japan received. They were the Takara designs. Well, a couple years later, Walmart bought up those designs and decided to put them in retro packaging and to base the color scheme on what they appeared on as the Headmasters anime series. So we got the best of both worlds with this one right here because we got the actual mold from the Headmasters and we got the color scheme to match the cartoon series. So these figures are very faithful to the animated model from Transformers Headmaster series in Japan. And more so than the Walgreens series, because I believe the Walgreens series, when they released their version of the Headmasters, they did release the head sculpts based on the Legends Headmasters, but they released the bodies that were more based on the Titans Return version. So it was kind of like almost like we got the best of both worlds out of this figure. And I know it's very confusing. It was very confusing for me to put this review together. And when I was trying to break everything down, I took a lot of takes because there was just so much information. But this figure is so nicely done. And I do want to bring out my Generation 1 version of Weirdwolf. And I kind of wish I brought out my Titans Return version because that would have been more significant because then I could show you the differences and how it kind of segues from Generation 1 to Titans Returns to Retro Series. And unfortunately, I didn't really get my hands on any of the Walgreens exclusives, so I couldn't even tell you about those figures for personal experience. But you can see a lot of design elements did carry over from the robot mode too. I mean, unfortunately, the gimmick with the Headmaster is when the head goes into the port, it's spring-loaded, and it has little tabs right here that kind of push down, and it tells you their tech spec. You got the speed, strength, and intelligence. Well, that was something that did not carry through the Titans Returns or the Retro Series version of the Headmasters, which was a very cool gimmick, and I'm sure that's more of a cost-cutting measure. But I mean, still, it's a really cool figure. I mean, you got a cartoon-accurate toy of the Headmasters. I mean, what can you complain about when you have that? You know, in my honest opinion, because all of us Transformers fans as kids wanted more cartoon-accurate figures, and now we got them because Takara and Hasbro have figured out how to engineer these figures so they could give us best of both worlds. Very, very nicely done figure. And I do like Generation 1. Has a very special place in my heart, but I mean, they killed it. I mean, Hasbro and Takara totally killed it with Weirdwolf. Very, very nicely done figure. But if you guys found any information in this review valuable, please like and share this video. Also, if you really enjoy my content, please subscribe to my channel. And while you're there, click the bell to be notified of any future videos. I want to thank you guys for watching Red Tail Toy Review. I'll check you guys out next time.